In this next part, we're going to be talking about factor by grouping. So we're going to basically make groups and then put it together. That's all we're going to focus on. Now, if it has even amount of terms, most likely you're going to do grouping. And if you have the question, factor by grouping, then for sure you will know that you have to do by grouping. But when you have an even amount of terms, like in this case we have 4, then most likely you're going to do factor by grouping. In the first example, 7n to the third minus 28n squared minus 5n plus 20. It has 4 terms, so we're going to do factor by grouping. When you see you have an even amount of terms, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically split it in half. So my left side will have these 2 terms. My right side will have these 2 terms. Alright, so it's basically factor by GCF for the left side, factor by GCF on the right side. So let's look at our greatest common factor on the left side. Between 7n to the third minus 28n squared, both of the numbers are divisible by 7. And they both have n's. So, just like GCF, we're going to divide by the lowest exponent, which is n squared. So, my greatest common factor, 7n squared, will be outside the parenthesis. So, 7n to the third divided by 7n squared. So, it's 7 divided by 7, which is 1. I don't have to write it. But n to the third divided by n squared, remember, it's going to be top exponent minus bottom exponent because I'm dividing. So 3 minus 2 will be n to the 1 power. And then here, it will be negative 28 divided by 7 will be negative 4. And then n squared divided by n squared. So remember, top exponent minus bottom, it will be n to the 0 power. So that's what I'm going to do, or that's what I can only do for the left side. Now, same process, my GCF for the right side. So what's in common between negative 5 and the 20 is just the numbers. Both of them are divisible by 5. Now, this is my right side. The first term of my right side starts off with a negative, so I'm going to divide both terms by negative 5. So not just 5, but also negative 5. To review, the first term of the right side starts off with a negative, so I'm going to divide both terms by a negative. Both of them are divisible by 5, so my GCF is negative 5. So my GCF will be outside the parenthesis, negative 5. Negative 5n divided by negative 5 will be just simply positive n. Positive 20 divided by negative 5 will be minus 4. Alright, let me simplify one step further. So this GCF will stay the same, so 7n squared. When it's n to the 1 power, it just simply means n. And then when it's over here n to the 0, that becomes 1, so I don't need to do anything. I'm just going to leave it as minus 4. And then minus 5, parenthesis, and minus 4. Alright. So let's take a closer look. Notice how these two pair of parentheses are the same. Exactly the same. N minus 4, N minus 4. If you come across something like this, where two set of parentheses, they are exactly the same with a coefficient outside the parentheses, what I'm going to do is I'm going to group these two. Listen carefully to the word. I'm going to group these two right here together. So it will be 7n squared minus 5. The reason I wrote minus 5 is because that negative 5 right there. See how I group those two together? And then the one that I underlined, n minus 4, I'm just going to write it one time. N minus 4. So I finished factor by grouping, and this is our final answer. So to review, when I had these two set of parentheses that are exactly the same, n minus 4, n minus 4, the moment you see that they're exactly the same, I group these two, the 7n squared and the minus 5, together as one set of parentheses. I wrote the common factor, n minus 4, just once in your final answer, and then this is your final answer. So this is what I mean by factor by grouping. Find the GCF on the left side, find the GCF on the right side, and then when you finish factoring by GCF, you see that these set of parentheses are exactly the same. So group the outside factors as one, then the ones that are the same, just write it once, and that's it. In the second example, we have negative 5m to the 6th power plus 10m to the 4th power minus 7m squared plus 14. Alright, so I have 4 terms, so that's an even amount of terms. So that means that I'm going to factor by grouping. So I'm going to split into the left side and the right side. Alright, so let's start by looking for the GCF on the left side. Both of these terms can be divided by 5, but be very careful. My first term on the left side, it starts out with a negative, so I'm going to divide by negative. Both of these numbers are divisible by 5, so it's going to be negative 5. Notice how we both have m's, or should I say both terms have m's. So I'm going to divide by m on both of them, but always use the lowest exponent, so it's going to be to the 4th power. So my GCF is negative 5 m to the 4th, so I'm undistributing with the negative 5 m to the 4th. So when I'm dividing, negative 5 divided by negative 5, well, that's going to be just a positive 1. M to the 6th divided by m to the 4th. Well, I'm still going to have an m, but it's going to be top exponent minus bottom, which is going to be 2. Alright, positive 10 divided by negative 5 will be negative 2. Now, m to the 4th divided by m to the 4th, so top exponent minus bottom, it will be m to the 0th power. So that's it. Now let's talk about the right side. The first term on the right side, you see how it's negative, so we're going to write negative, or I'm going to divide by negative on both terms. What's in common between 7m squared and 14 is just the numbers. Both of them are divisible by 7. So my GCF is negative 7. So I'm going to undistribute with the negative 7. Negative 7m squared divided by negative 7 is just 1m squared. Positive 14 divided by negative 7 would be minus 2. Alright, now I'm going to simplify. So this will stay the same, negative 5m to the 4th. So since it's just 1m squared, I don't need to write that 1, it's okay. It's alright if you leave it, but you don't need to, so m squared. And then, since that is m to the 0th power, which will change into 1, 1 times negative 2 will be negative 2. And then negative 7, which doesn't change. Since it's 1m squared, it just means m squared. And then minus 2. So here, notice how inside the parenthesis, it's m squared minus 2, m squared minus 2. Exactly the same. So if it's exactly the same, I am going to group my negative 5m to the 4th and my negative 7 together. So it will be negative 5m to the 4th minus 7 together. And then my second set of parentheses is the one that are exactly the same. M squared minus 2. Now, I know something fishy about the first set of parentheses. Notice how both terms are negative. So I can actually continue factor by GCF by -1 by -1. So if I do that, then my GCF will be on the outside, so -1 parenthesis. When I divide by -1, this will be positive 5m to the 4th. This will become plus 7. That's the only thing that changed. This will stay the same. So that's something that we gotta watch out for. Since these two terms are the same sign, which in this case negative, I just factor out the -1, or undistributed -1 is outside of parentheses. So therefore, this is my final answer. So the -1 is outside. 5m to the 4th plus 7 times m squared minus 2. So that is our final answer. So in our third example, we have 4 terms. But the one thing you gotta look out for is that these two terms have 2 variables, x and y. So we gotta be extra careful with these. Now, since we have an even amount of terms, we're gonna do factor by greatest common factor. So my left side will be the 4x to the 5th y squared plus 20x to the 3rd. And then my right side will be -6x squared y6 minus 42y to the 4th. Alright, so let's look at our GCF on the left side. Both of these can be divisible by 4. Now they both have x, so we gotta divide by x. The lowest exponent is the 3. Alright. Now, when I divide by 4x to the 3rd, my GCF will be outside of parentheses. So 4x to the 5th y squared divided by 4x to the 3rd, it will be, the 4 divided by 4 is just 1. X to the 5th divided by x to the 3rd, so don't forget 5 minus 3, that would be x squared. And then the y to the square, I didn't divide by anything, so I'll just put it next to the x squared. Alright, now the last part, positive 28 divided by positive 4 will be plus 7. X to the 3rd divided by x to the 3rd, x to the 0 power. Alright, so I'm finished factoring by GCF on the left side. Now, on the right side, my first term is negative, so I'm going to be dividing by a negative, and then negative. What's in common between 6 and 42 is both divisible by 6. Now both of them, they have a y variable. So we're going to divide both terms by y. The lowest exponent is to the 4th. So my GCF is -6 y to the 4th. So -6 y to the 4th in front of the parentheses. So -6 divided by -6 is positive 1. Now I'm not dividing by any x's, so I'm just going to bring that down, x squared. Y to the 6 divided by y to the 4, so 6 minus 4 y squared. -42 divided by -6 will be positive 7. And then y to the 4th divided by y to the 4th, it will be y to the 0 power. Alright, so from that part, I'm going to simplify because I have the 1 in front of the x squared, y squared. I also have x to the 0 power, y to the 0 power. So, this will stay the same for x to the 3rd. Since it's just 1 x squared, y squared, I'm just going to write x squared, y squared. Now, since this is x to the 0 power, that becomes 1. 1 times positive 7 plus 7. My GCF from the right side, since it's just 1 x squared, y squared, it's just going to be x squared, y squared. Now, y to the 0, that becomes 1. 1 times positive 7 will be plus 7. Alright? Notice how inside the parenthesis is x squared y squared plus 7, x squared y squared plus 7. They're both the same. So therefore, my GCF from the left side, my GCF from the right side will be grouped together. So it will be 4x to the third minus 6y to the fourth. And then the one that I'm going to write once is x squared y squared plus 7. So that's what it's going to look like when factored by grouping. But I noticed one more thing inside the first set of parentheses. Notice how you have a 4 in the first term and a 6 on the second term. They're both even. So that means that I can actually continue factoring. So my GCF is going to be 2. Because 4 and 6 are divisible by 2. So that means that my GCF, 2, will be on the outside. 4 divided by 2 would be just 2 with the x to the third. Negative 6 divided by 2 would be negative 3 with y to the fourth. And then this will stay the same. So x squared y squared plus 7. So I did have to continue factoring because in the first set of parentheses, these two are divisible by 2. So my final answer is 2 times 2x to the third minus 3y to the fourth times x squared y squared plus 7. And then here's our final answer.